Welcome. My name is Karim Mourtani. I'm a developer in Belgium. I work for the Flemish government, so yes, I am a civil servant. And I work as a developer. My official title within the organization is that I'm a .NET developer. However, in a previous life, I was a DBA. I've been a BI developer. I've been a SharePoint developer. I've been a, well, could actually say a Microsoft developer. I'm also a member of the board of DataMinds, the Belgium data platform user group. We organize a yearly event in October called DataMinds Connect, hence this talk. People who know Benny de Jager from the Power BI CAT team is also part of our crew. I'm a track owner for Data BI at Techorama, the conference in Belgium and in the Netherlands. I'm an absolute geek. My first computer was a TRS-80 when I was 8 years old. So for those of you who know what a TRS-80 is, I think you feel my pain as well. I started working professionally with SQL Server 6.5, and I programmed for the first time professionally with Visual Basic 3.0. When I am not stuck behind a computer, I like going to thrift stores. I collect a lot of Lego, too much, my wife says, and spend time in the garden. These are my contact details. You'll have them again at the end of the session as well. Next, what are we going to do? First of all, we're going to. I'm a guy who, I don't like theory, so I'm going to go through the theory as quickly as possible, and I'm going to try and explain the theory with examples. I think that tends to be the best way to explain things. So, what is the biggest dev process problem, looking at it from a database standpoint? I'm not talking about developing the application itself. I tend to use SQL Server data tools. Who's already using SQL Server data tools now? Who's never used it or doesn't even know what it is? Who just got because it said pipeline and CI/CD maybe? Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain what it does. It's actually a plugin for Visual Studio. Yes, I did say Visual Studio. There are a few limitations. And then we're going to go through some demos. And after the demos, I got some lists of tips, tricks, takeaways from the experience I've had, from comments I've had from previous times I've presented this. Right. First of all, let me thank all the partners that are here. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to go and talk to them on the floor. And, you know, just because of them, this event is possible. Without them, we wouldn't be sat here. So do go to your partners. The reason why I put it like that, I didn't have time, or I didn't really feel like copying all the logos, and I think I misplaced the partner slide somewhere. Anyway, right. Who recognizes some of these questions when you're developing your database and deploying it? Has script X been run or not on this system? Is our seed data filled in? You know, say you have a list, simple drop-down list with a contact form, and you're going to say, choose your county, and then within your county, you'd say, choose the town. That data itself, how do you manage that? Are there any other dependencies of other databases? And what about versions? You developed your script against your local laptop, which is maybe already has SQL Server installed since SQL Server 14 was there. You haven't upgraded it, but you know you're going to be deploying to Azure. So, anybody recognize those issues? Yes. What is SQL Server Data Tools? It's a tooling system for Visual Studio. And let me make it absolutely clear, it is not a replacement for Management Studio. I tend to actually always have both open. I actually create a file. Sometimes I actually work purely in Management Studio, and then I import everything in Visual Studio, or I create everything in Visual Studio, but I actually edit my scripts in Management Studio. But working in Management Studio, for me personally, is more a question of I'm used to working in Management Studio. I think that is the reason why a lot of people have a fear of Visual Studio. Now, as I said, my official title is .NET developer, so I don't mind working in Visual Studio, but it's the layout of Management Studio that attracts me. Anyway. So it's not a replacement for Management Studio. It's an in-memory model, so you're not actually making or building a database at the moment itself when you're working in Visual Studio. You're just actually designing your database. And the best thing of it, for me personally, are these 4 points. You can apply source control. Source control meaning something did wrong, I want to go back. Yes, you can. It allows you to compare databases on a schema level. And you can deploy your database as part of your project, so you can actually include it in your pipeline when you're deploying the application itself. Because that is actually, up until a year ago, the biggest problem we had is our pipeline for the application that ran perfectly and automatically whenever we wanted it. And then 2 hours later, we get a phone call from the business saying, yeah, guys, it's not working. Oh, yeah, forgot that database script. Right. F5, problem solved. And the beauty is you can use it to deploy your CI/CD through your CI/CD pipeline. Now, I'm purely going to be doing my demo using Azure DevOps. I'm not going to be using GitHub. I know I think last week, Kevin Chan posted something on LinkedIn that he did this on GitHub. I'll still have to go and look at his post, so I haven't worked it out yet. But I'm going to be using Azure DevOps. Right. How does it work? Simple. You focus on what your database needs to do. So all you do is you define the objects that you need in your database, right? So you actually only write create statement. If you enter an alter statement on a table to add a column, for example, it won't allow you. It will allow you to alter your table to add indexes, foreign keys, primary keys, unique constraints, all other constraints. That is possible. But actually, if, say, you open Management Studio and you say, I got table with people, I got first name, surname, I need to add an email. The quickest way to do that is alter table people, add email, nvarchar 254, whatever, F5, problem solved. In Management Studio, in SQL Server Data Tools, you actually need to go to your create table statement and add the column as in your create statement, and then let Visual Studio do the job for you. That's actually the power of SQL Server Data Tools. The power is, like it says here, if it's new, it'll create it. If it exists, it'll alter it. If there are limitations on the objects that you're trying to alter, like, for example, a table that you are replicating at the moment, it will say, I can't deploy this. It's being replicated. I don't know if I can do this. There's data in this table, and I'm going to change the email column from 254 to 125. Truncation could occur. So those are all things that SQL Server Data Tools does for you. Now, when I say SQL Server Data Tools, let me make it clear, I'm also talking about your Azure pipeline. You'll get the same error message within your pipeline, right? Like I said, it's model-based. It's in memory. It's not a database. And you can actually work locally, deploy to your laptops, deploy to your servers, deploy to the cloud, whatever. In my demo, I'm going to be doing Azure DevOps. I'm going to be running the pipeline in Azure to actually deploy to my laptop here. For argument's sake, I got SQL Server 2022 installed on this laptop 4 times, 4 different instances. I'm a big US fan, so I got an instance called Chicago, 1 New York, 1 DC, et cetera, et cetera. And all you need to do is declare objects. Now, the one thing that's not on this slide that I haven't talked about, but I prefer to use my examples for that, is the seed data. What about the data? How do you get it in your database? How does it work? Simple. You build your solution. It creates what's called a DAC pack. What is a DAC pack? Actually, it's just an XML. Like Microsoft calls it a DAC pack, but actually if you rename the file to .zip, and then you extract the file, you'll find an XML file, and that's where your definition is in. That's actually all a DAC pack is. And then what you do is you deploy it to all the possible environments you want. At work now, we've got it that if they call me the DBA of a team, you know. My nickname is Query. I'm called Kareem. We have someone who sits not far from us who's called Karin, which is the female version of Kareem, a female name that sounds very much, so in order to avoid it, they call me Query. And they always laugh because when they say, Kareem, can we do this? And I say, yes, we can. And they all then go in unison and say, you probably wrote a stored procedure for it. Yes, I did. But the beauty is by teaching .NET developers to do this in Visual Studio, I actually now have .NET developers writing really good stored procedures. And some of them even stepping away from Entity Framework. Although I love Entity Framework, don't get me wrong. If it's simple CRUDs, use Entity Framework, please. Right, I think we're nearly there. What are the limitations? I think I kind of already covered it. The pipeline will not start if you're trying to deploy to a database that is being replicated. You can't always, don't worry about the content. I will do a blog post, and you will get my slides on my GitHub, so don't worry. When you're deploying to different platforms, because we have got old SQL servers running. Most of our production servers are still SQL 2014. About a week ago, we started a project to actually upgrade them, so there's a lot more work coming our way. And actually, the last one is more like, it's not the click a button and, hey, everything works. You still need to think about what you're doing. So, right. What's next? Demo. Okay, that's what you're all here for, right? Now, my apologies if you would like to go like that with your head when someone's presenting. I'll be sat here now for most of the rest of the session. But that's obviously for obvious reasons. Right. As you can see, I have a management studio. Who actually uses registered servers often? People actually use it a lot? Yeah. I think it's the best thing there is in Management Studio. Because I just have to double click, or just press enter. If I don't want to rename it, I need to double click it on the right way. See? It looks like I'm a bit nervous, isn't it? Right, I'm gonna open them all. That way I don't have this nervousness anymore. There we go. There we go. Hey. So I've opened now, I've got 4 instances. Marvin, that's the name of this laptop, after Marvin Gaye. And then I created 3 extra instances called Chicago, DC, and New York. In no particular order. Oh, well, yes, it is in order, because as far as I'm concerned, Chicago is the most beautiful city in the US. I think someone disagrees with me. Right. You're here for the demo. Right, let me just make sure before we are here. That's my local, we're not going to look at that. I'm just going to be working here. I got a SQL bits. See, I forgot, I didn't clean up. Damn, my apologies. So we're going to be doing that in the meantime. If it don't work, I just use a different name or redeploy to it. There we go. The tools database I'm going to leave because, there we go. Oh. I did another test last night. Any people who present to keep on retesting their scripts all the time, it's dangerous. Because then you say, oh, I could do that differently. And last night my wife said, no, you're presenting tomorrow, don't change anything. Right, so I got 4 instances, actually only 3. The main instance, the default instance we're not actually going to use. I've got a database called tools in there. on DC, New York, DC, let me see, DC. I haven't got one. That's on purpose. That's actually on purpose. There's a reason for it. And let me just make it one more thing. Delete the tools database in Chicago as well. There we go. Okay. Excuse me. Right. Simple. We're in Wales. I always use very simple, basic examples. I'm going to create an example that actually adds counties to a database. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. But I think it's basic enough to actually explain the principles behind it. Okay? Any questions so far? No? Right. Okay, let's go to... First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table. This one is not. These two are extra tables that I use. Is this readable, or should I try and zoom in for everyone? And as real SQL developers, we don't need to see that. So it's a simple table, right? County, ID, active, create, created by, modified, modified by, deleted, deleted by, the name of the county. Somebody think those are a lot of columns just for one column? For one table with one column? Yes? The thing is, we have extreme... I work for the government, so we have to audit everything. So if you delete something, we logged it. So that's the reason why. So, right. It's a very simple, basic table. I can now copy-paste this in Management Studio, create my database, and everything. Yeah? You know the process, right? Then we've got, actually what it is you've got, first of all, you've got your table definitions, you define schemas. I like to work, I have a separate schema for non-transactional stuff called DBA. I think the name says what it's used for. Migrations, I will get to that. That's actually, as far as I'm concerned, the secret sauce to get your seed data in. I got a couple of functions that I use. I've got 3 schemas that I use, DBA tools and, let's see, UDF for user-defined functions. And then you have the scripts, and those are actually the things that actually do more than just create your database. You got pre-deployment scripts and post-deployment scripts. Pre, before, post, after. Okay. I'm sorry if I say the obvious things. I just want to make sure that everybody understands what they're used for. First of all, if I were not to run any post-deployment scripts, so I'm going to put this in comments, right? Control-KC. If you don't, I'm a keyboard man, so the first thing I learn in any application, what are the shortcuts here? So if you don't know, Control-KC to comment, Control-KU to uncomment. Right. So, you know what? There are several ways of doing it. I'm going to do it. The basic way is actually deploy from Visual Studio to my database. So I stay in Visual Studio, right? I take my project, SQL bits. I'm not going to, the reason why I'm not showing all the scripts is because it's something that you can go through. That's not what you're here for. You're actually here to see how it all works, right? So then I'm going to say, wait, just a minute. Just bear with me. So SQL bits 2023, publish. And there we go. I just realized something. Marvin, where are you? SQL bits 001. It's not there. Is there a problem? Okay, no. So there we go, SQL bits 001. I'm just going to do first straight away publish. There we go. So down here, and that's sometimes, this can take some time, sometimes not. 7 seconds. What it actually does now is it's actually going to go through all your scripts that you generated. It's going to go to your server, It's going to go and look at your database. It's going to say what's in there. It's going to say this is all I need to do, and then it's going to execute it. Now, the beauty of this is, as you saw, SQL bit 001 didn't exist on my server. So what it did as well is it actually created the database itself as well. Right. If you want to see the results, here are the results. It created first the schemas, then the table, added the default constraints, created my functions, procedures, problem, update complete. If you want to see what the script is that it generated, you can see that too. Let's first double click on T-SQL. And actually, this is, somebody know what this method of writing a script is? What's it called? Yes, exactly. Okay, so that's the other thing I want to tell you, is it actually creates your scripts in SQL CMD, and then when that is done, it actually executes everything if SQL CMD is enabled, obviously. Right, so let's then have a look at the database. So let's go back to Marvin here. Hello, my friend. SQL bit 001, tables. There we go, the 3 tables that I defined. County. Let's do a select top 1000. And it's empty because I put my post-deployment scripts in comments. So let's go back to the post-deployment scripts. First we add the counties. So we just undo this. Yeah. Right. First of all, it's a simple insert statement, so that's nothing fancy about that. We actually work with what we call migrations, but not migrations in the entity framework sense of the word. More migrations as in we're registering which script we've executed. So if it's been executed before, we don't need to execute it again. If it's not been executed, we do need to execute it. Let me just quickly show you the stored procedure itself. So we go back to stored procedure, DBO migration check. I mean, it is not really, there we go. We are looking for an ID based on the migration ID we passed. If it's null, that's it. If it's not, and these zeros and ones, those are the important ones, because that's what we actually use in our script, right? So let's go to add counties. So if my migration check has run, if it's 0, and yes, 0 is usually successful, but it's also, you don't forget, explain a .NET developer that 0 is successful. It doesn't quite work, so I actually switched the logic on this one on purpose. So, actually, I should maybe call it migration find. Find the migration, right? Then we add the statements, and then at the end we add it to register the fact that we've actually executed this script. So in order to get that done, that's why I work with here the zeros and the ones. We actually have one major deployment script, post-deployment script, and here, down here, you have the post-deploy build action. On your tables, you just have a standard build action. You don't need to copy them. That's actually very important. If you want to add a script just for your own notes, you can do that as well. Just change the build action to none. You can add 55,000 scripts if you want. It will do nothing with it. So if you have a type of scripts you want to start from, but you don't want them to influence your database, you can put them in a folder. But make sure they all have the build action none. Then, right, so back to the post-deployment script, pre-deployment script before we start the deploy. post-deployment scripts. Let me now add this one. I'm just going to add the first one. Now, as you can see, it's going red. Yeah, the red squigglies. We're not that used to that in Management Studio, but that's really a big .NET thing, Visual Studio thing. There's an error. The problem is, it's not an error. The problem is, Visual Studio, for some reason, although I've said it's post-deployment, so it knows it's post-deployment, it actually doesn't put itself in SQL CMD mode. So if I now put it in SQL CMD mode, the error goes away. So it's purely for representation purposes that you need to do that. That is like one of those little bugs. As far as I'm concerned, it's like one of those bugs in SQL Server Data Tools that is like, because you've put it on post-deploy anyway, so it should actually be a CMD as default. Actually, it should work the other way around. On purpose, I'm not going to uncomment the second one, but I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Publish. Just a minute. Where is it? Excuse me. Right mouse click, publish. There we go. Again, edit. So we were SQL bit 01 on Marvin. Thank you. Let's publish it. It's a couple of seconds. Still okay for time, I think. View results. There we go. Migration ID, add counties has not been executed, then has been executed and is registered. These two are simple print statements in my migration check and migration add stored procedures. So I've actually added code that I can see here in my message. That is something as well that, that is actually very powerful if you're running it here. So you can build in all your checks that you want on a SQL level, and put it in a stored procedure if you want to. It's usually the easiest way that I find. And then use the print statements, because then even your .NET developers, and please don't get me wrong, I do not hate .NET developers, because officially I am one. Yeah? But when you say stored procedure, they start going red in their face. You know. Update complete. So let's have a look. What did the update do? So I'm just going to do F5 on this table. There we go. And there we go. It's added the first 4 counties in the first script. As you can see, the created by has been filled in. The date is the date that it was done. Yeah, I'm still running on European time. For a 1-hour time difference, I don't bother changing the time on my laptop. My apologies for that. Active version, that is pure internal stuff. But it could be any other column that you want, right? Now, I haven't gone to the cloud yet. I've just worked locally. So the beauty of it is, and this is how we quite often work it, every 2 years, we get new laptops. And we were in that period that every developer got his new laptop. And about 3 weeks ago, my colleague got his laptop, and he said, right, I need the database for our online project. And he just actually opened the Visual Studio project of the application, went to a subsection where the SSDT project was, right mouse click, create publish, hit publish, and within less than 5 minutes, he had a full-blown database. Up until then, the way we used to do it, Green, do you have that database? Yeah, can you take a backup and give it to me? Yeah, but it's a 2 gig backup. How am I going to get it to you? I'll put it on my OneDrive. Nah, okay, you got an external drive? Yeah, no, but I'm not in Brussels. Okay, fine. You know the story? This solves that problem as well. You'd be surprised what you can do. Once you start, that's what I mean, be conscious about what you do. you can really do really nice things. Now, let's go to the cloud and back. Because at the end of the day, that's what we've done. One more thing that I forgot to tell you, but this is not what this session is all about. I actually created a separate branch. So that's creating those branches is the way you do your source control, obviously. When your branch is complete, you create what they call a pull request. The pull request puts it in the master or in the main branch. We still call it master. It's a yeah, I know. I know why you're laughing, but fine. So what you also can see, and that is what I like about branching, is everything that has changed is registered. So if you say, I'm completely wrong, all what I did now is actually worth nothing, well, you can do right mouse click, undo changes, and nothing's changed. Or you can just delete your branch, because it's just a local branch that you haven't pushed, that you haven't actually committed yet. It's as simple as that. Right, so before we go to the cloud, let me do this as well. Go back to my post-deployment script and enable the second, and just for the hell of it, add another one in the first called West Glamorgan 2, just for the hell of it. But anybody know what's going to happen with this one? Is it going to get deployed? Am I going to get West Glamorgan 2 in my database?
No, it's not because you did register that.
Yes. And that is what you need to remember, whether it's registered or not. We also, in our system, we also have certain stored procedure to add, seed data. But sometimes we have certain seed data that change. So instead of writing alter or update statements, we've actually put all the logic in a stored procedure, and then we said these are the rules. And if you call that stored procedure, don't check the migration status, always execute it. If it exists, you do an update statement. If it doesn't exist, you do an insert statement. So first, cloud. If there's one thing I cannot do is spell correctly. Thank God for IntelliSense. I commit all, I push it, so that means that I've committed it to my branch locally. I've also pushed the content of my branch to my branch in DevOps. That's all I've done. I haven't actually changed the main branch yet. That's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to create a pull request. I love it that I can just click on it. First, add the commit messages. For those knowing Dutch, the first 2 lines, that was just the most used commit message that I use is temporary check-in, but in Dutch. Right, title, right, let's demo Wales script counties 2. There we go. Now, I haven't done anything else. Here you can see how many commits were done, which ones, how many files are going to be changed, what is going to be added, if anything is going to be removed. I even have a text file that I put in there. And at work, what we also have is we have a system that if I now create this, at least one other colleague needs to approve my pull request, even if it's me doing it. I haven't activated that here. You can do it as much as you want. You can have it that everybody in the team needs to approve it, or it needs to be daisy chained, so first person X, then Y, then Z, etc., etc. At the same time, DevOps allows you to override it if it needs to be when someone's on vacation, so don't worry about that as well. So all I'm going to do, I'm just going to click approve, but disapprove, click. does nothing as far as I'm concerned in this demo, but it's just a habit of clicking approve. And then I complete it. The minute I hit complete, I delete my features and my branch as well, because at that point, when you see this bit here, when that's checked, once this is finished, my branch means nothing. So we complete the merge, and now, to be honest, I've hotwired DevOps to actually start doing a lot of gobbledygook. What is it going to do now? It's actually going to build it. So if you remember the graphic, the top part, it's going to build it first. Then it's going to create what is called an artifact. What's the artifact? That's the DACPack file. It's going to put the DACPack file somewhere else. And then you can either automatically or with, what's it called? Automatically or with manual intervention approvals, have it deployed. So let's see, my pull request is finished. Let's go back to the pipelines. Let's see, here we go. So SQL bits demo. So, let me just see all recent pipelines releases. Build SQL demo. Let's just see, releases, Cloudberry, deploy SQL bit 01. What happened? Or I didn't automate the process. That's possible as well, that I was going to show that. Build SQL demo. It's this one, I'm sure.
Switch to the All tab, and you've got, you go back.
Yes.
To the pipelines. Go to the All tab, see if it's going to go under there. No.
Yeah. Thank you. 20, yeah, but I think I forgot. Don't worry, I have another example. SQL DB. I've got the same process, but this is actually an internal called tools. It's my tools database. I'm going to go to that pipeline. So we got your pools, build tools database. See, yesterday. So final check-in. Let me run that pipeline again. So you might have seen it or not. On most of my, like Chicago, Marvin, Chicago, there's no database and none in DC. So it's the same principle, but I'm going to run it now here on the pipelines. Run pipeline. Windows latest, I think. Fingers crossed. You know, there we go, engine job. Now what that's going to do is actually going to take the DACPack that I built, in this case, last night. Yeah, and it's going to deploy it first to one server. And these are hot-wired anyway, but then within releases here, as you can see yesterday, and just for the record, DC fails on purpose. I'm just saying it. So first, wait till this pipeline works. So for not having to waste too much time, are there any questions? Comments, remarks? Yes?
Automatically delete on deployment.
Sorry?
So if you had a schema that had, say, 10 tables in it or 10 structures or whatever, and then within your Visual Studio you remove one intentionally, and then on your deployment, when you deploy to, say, your PC, that already has those 10 scripts.
Yes.
Get the update. Does it remove the one you've removed, or does that keep it?
No. Right. The question was, if you have an object in your database that you've created previously as part of this process, that you intentionally remove as part of your process, does it actually get removed from the database?
Yeah.
Out of the box? No. But that's what we, in our environment, use pre-deployment scripts for. So that removing something from a database, by the time you actually, especially a table, for example, I mean, a lot must have happened. If it's a dev environment, okay, fair enough. But I don't think you remove a table in a production environment on a whim. If you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you remove it, it doesn't do it out of the box. But if you really do need to remove it, put it in your pre-deployment scripts, so it's removed. So actually, although I understand your question, although you would think that Visual Studio would say, okay, this is a drop table statement that I need to do. But the thing is, think about it. Even if you were to shorten a column, it says, I can't shorten because data truncation might occur. So if it already blocks you on that, why would it automatically drop a table? Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, that's funny, so with the truncation, if you had a column that's say varchar 200 and you're moving it to varchar 100, does the error only ever show up when if you've got a value within there that is say varchar 150, or even if you've got
No.
or does it always come?
It looks at the that's the thing, that's the power and also the weakness of SQL Server data tools. It only looks at the definition of your object.
So you can never go down.
Now, so if we say this table needs to be, this column needs to be reduced, we actually do it in 2 steps. Because the problem is the comparison of your DAT pack to the database happens before your pre-deployment scripts as well. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we actually have to do it in 2 steps. So we first do a one pull request to actually alter the column, but then we actually have a pre-deployment script which has a proper alter column and shorten it. And usually, this is the way we do it. Say we want to go to 150. I will actually do an alter statement to 145. Or say we need a column of 150, yeah? I will actually do my alter statement to 150, but in my script, put it at 160. Just to be sure, so that I can actually visually check afterwards, yes, it did do its job. Because although it's a computer, I don't always 100% trust a computer. And you know why? A non-technical person told me it's called picnic. And picnic stands for very simple, problem in chair, not in computer. Right. See, my build is done. In the meantime, any other questions? Yes.
How would you deal with like merging changes? So say you have developers with different branches, how do you deal with conflicts? Is there any particular things to look out for?
Well, the way, that comes back down to simple branching strategy. So the way we do it is, if I've been working, say, for more, usually when it comes to database projects in our team, I can do what I want. Kareem, you do it. It's also when I get a review, they say, Kareem knows too much about the database. Yeah, but I'm the only one who actually want to go in the database and see what happens. So they leave it to me. Actually, the best way to do it is, there's a few steps you need to take. You have your branch, right? And your colleague has his branch, right? So you need to decide between yourselves, like, is it really such a big conflict? Bless you. Who's the first to actually that needs to be pushed in, right? And then what you need to do then is you take your main branch, you pull it in first, then within Visual Studio, and I think I can show you that. If I drop down here, you can actually go to any other branch. As you can say here, master emerging to current branch. See that? So you can do 2 things. Either you say, I bring the master in, I merge it in, and I merge it with the master, and then he does his thing. Or you go sit next to each other behind one computer, bring in his branch onto your computer, merge his branch into your branch, and then together decide, hey, what's the solution here? And then do again the master thing and bring that in, and then when you will do then a pull request, you won't have a single problem because you know the correct version is in there. Right? Okay, let me just go back, hopefully. As you can see, in the meantime, release 11 started today. So on the main Marvin, so this tools database. 5 minutes, yes. So let me just hit on approve. Is there any more questions, please? Let me know. Okay, sorry, yes. I forgot about the people online, sorry about that.
And because we're a high-tech conference,
Okay, I'll have to look at, okay, brilliant. When managing a project to deploy it to multiple environments using CI/CD pipelines, how do you manage the users and permissions in SSDT? Well, the way we manage our users and permissions, so everybody heard the question here? Yes? The way we do it is the way my .NET developers love that I do it, is actually manage the whole thing using stored procedures. And then I actually use my stored procedures in my deployment scripts. The second question from Magnus, first question was from Thomas, from Magnus. Sometimes my views, which might use a new table, gets published, created before the actual table in the publish script, leading to an error. Is there any way to control that? Well, Magnus, I have to be absolutely honest. I don't know. I haven't had that issue myself. If you reach out to me, SQLKO@sqlko.net, I will try and see if I can simulate it. If need be, we can set up a call, a Teams call, and look at it together if you want at some point in the future. Okay, and Summit just added another question. If a database is using a reference from another database, how to build it in DevOps, which is not in the same solution or repo? Haha. Merge your solutions and repos would be my answer. As far as I'm concerned, Summit, no disrespect to the way your question, it's a very valid question actually. But the thing is, if you've come to a point that you've got a database that is dependent on another database, not only from a purely technical sense, but also from a .NET sense, they need to be in the same solution. Then you need to actually move them to the same repo. Because what I didn't do yet, and what didn't show you yet, is one of the branch, hopefully I can see it now. Our branches start with numbers because we actually use the tasks tab in Azure DevOps. So our branch starts with the task number. So if you bring all your database into one repo, we've gone even as far as to say it's the same repo as our actual .NET code. And that way we can actually, work together. So it's not that I'm trying to fob you off, but my advice would be bring them together at least in the same solution. And actually, by putting them in the same solution, you force yourself to put them in the same repo.